I used to be the guy who stayed quiet, paid the bills, took the insults, smiled through the humiliation. They laughed behind my back, my wife and her best friend, who practically lived in our guest room. I heard them whispering about how clueless I was, how I was just the money guy, how they ran the house and I just worked to keep the lights on. They thought I didn't know about the late night calls, or the times I came home early and the living room went awkwardly silent. They didn't know I heard her say, "He's harmless, he wouldn't dare leave me." They were wrong. See, while they were playing their little games, I was building mine, quietly, legally, smartly. I changed the property deed months ago, took her name off, opened a hidden safe behind the closet panel inside, the documents that would end this game in one swift move. Deed, will, trust, and the only key that still opened the master control panel, the one connected to the gates. The heating, the cameras, everything. So one rainy Tuesday I came home early again, except this time with a file in my hand. I handed her the envelope, she laughed, until she saw the header, final notice of divorce and eviction. She dropped her wine glass. I walked past her, opened the closet, turned the dial on the safe she never noticed, and pulled out the old brass key. No words, no yelling, just power shifting back to where it always belonged. Then I said calmly, "You have 72 hours, use them well." She stood frozen, her lips parted, but no words came out. Her friend, Lee, peeked around the corner with that usual smug look until she saw the folder. "Wait, what is this?" my wife finally whispered, her voice shaky now. "Is this some kind of joke?" I turned around slowly, holding the key up between my fingers. "This key," I said, "opens the control box in the garage, the one that controls everything in this house, from the gate you think is automatic, to the surveillance system you didn't know was still recording." Her face went pale. You can't just kick me out, my name's on the—" "No, it's not," I interrupted. Calm, cold. "I had the papers changed 6 months ago. After I caught your little late-night drives. After I saw you delete the messages you thought I never saw." Lee took a step forward. "You're being ridiculous. You think this will hold up? She's your wife. She's entitled to—" "To what?" I cut her off, turning to face them both. "Entitled to lie. To bring someone into my house and humiliate me in my own kitchen. Entitled to half a house she hasn't paid a cent towards since 2019. They both stared like I'd grown a second head. "You see, I let you believe I was blind." "That was your mistake," I said. "Because while you were busy playing Queen of the Castle, I was busy making sure the castle only had one ruler. Legally." I walked over to the fireplace, pulled out a second folder from behind the photo frame of our happy family, the one she'd forced us to take for Instagram last Christmas. "Inside here," I said, tapping the folder, "are copies of the last 3 months' worth of emails, between you and your tennis coach. The one who signs his emails with kisses." She opened her mouth to scream, but I raised a finger. "You scream, I post them," I said. "You stay quiet, I let you leave with your dignity. I'm not the monster you painted me to be, but I can be." She sat down, finally silent. Lee mumbled something and headed toward the door, her heels clicking like gunshots in the quiet house. And that's when I finally breathed again. Not because I was free yet, but because, for the first time in years, I wasn't the fool in the story. I was the one who wrote the ending. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. Because I still hadn't told her about the bank account, the hidden camera footage, or the letter I'd mailed to her parents that morning. She looked up slowly, eyes narrowing. "What letter?" she asked, her voice low and full of dread. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence work for me. Let her panic build just enough before I leaned against the doorway and said, "The one explaining why the wedding deposit your parents sent for our vow renewal went missing." Her hand shot to her mouth. "Oh, you didn't think I knew about that either?" I tilted my head. "That's the thing about pretending to be the fool. People forget you're still watching." Lee was gone now, door still slightly ajar. Rain falling just outside. My wife, ex-wife, technically as of yesterday's filing, stood there trembling. All that smugness drained out of her body like someone had pulled the plug. "You told my parents," she whispered. "Why would you do that?" "Because they deserved to know the truth. They mortgaged their retirement home for a vow renewal that was just another lie. You told them I insisted on it, that I was trying to win you back. But it was your idea, your photop, your cover story." I turned away, walking toward the stairs. Her voice chased me. "Where are you going?" I didn't stop. "To the guest room. The only one you never thought was good enough for you. I figured I'd sleep in it tonight, since it's finally mine again." At the top of the stairs, I paused. "Oh, and by the way," I said without turning back, "that camera in the kitchen, it's synced to my cloud. So if you're thinking of smashing anything before you leave, go ahead. I'd love to see the footage, my lawyer would too. I heard her sink onto the couch as I shut the guest room door. The silence in the house was strange. Not peaceful, not yet, but honest. The kind of quiet you only get after a storm breaks and the truth finally echoes off every wall. And I knew the next storm was still coming. Because tomorrow morning, I had a meeting with her boss. And I had receipts. The next morning, I stood outside the glass doors of Sutton and Wolfe Real Estate, her workplace for the past 5 years. The same place she said had strict no-visitor policies. The same place she swore I'd be too boring to ever understand. I stepped inside, greeted by the smell of coffee and ambition. Sleek floors, neutral colors. A fake smile from the front desk receptionist who didn't know me yet. I have an appointment, I said calmly. James Mercer, here to see Mr. Sutton. Her eyes widened slightly. Do you have? He's expecting me. Tell him it's regarding an internal conflict of interest. Those words hit like a trigger. She picked up the phone, mumbled into the receiver, and within seconds, a tall man in a navy suit emerged from the hall. Mr. Mercer, he said, offering a handshake. I read your email. I have to admit I was surprised. I shook his hand firmly. There's more where that came from. He led me into a private office, blinds shutting behind us. I placed a manila envelope on his desk, labeled clearly, dates, screenshots, audio recordings, her voice, her laugh, her confessions, and most damning of all, her negotiating a side deal with a developer from a rival firm, one she tried to funnel using my name and my credit line. She's been using company leads to benefit a private investor, I said, tapping the paper, while telling him I was the silent partner. Sutton's face darkened. This could tank a deal we've been working on for 7 months. I leaned back in the chair, crossing my legs. Then you'll want to look at page 12. It outlines how she rerouted client assets using her personal email and blamed your intern. He opened the folder, skimmed the pages, and didn't say a word for a long time. Then finally, we'll be handling this internally, swiftly. I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and offered a polite smile. I'm sure you will. As I walked toward the exit, I passed her office. She looked up from her desk. Eyes locked, her face turned white. I didn't stop walking. But just as I reached the door, I turned my head and gave her the same sentence she used the day she laughed about me to Lee. Some people learn the hard way. I said softly, that silence isn't weakness, it's planning. And I left her there, sitting in the house of cards she built with her own hands. The collapse was only beginning. That night I sat alone in the quiet house, no wine glasses clinking, no forced laughter from the kitchen. No echo of heels stabbing into the hardwood floor like declarations of dominance. Just me and the soft hum of jazz playing in the background. Freedom had a sound, and it was nothing like silence, it was peace. I was halfway through a page in the novel I'd been trying to read for months when I heard it. The sound of her key in the door. Then nothing. I didn't look up. I let her soak in the new energy of the place, the absence of her, the way the furniture had shifted slightly. The family photo she once centered above the mantel now gone, replaced by a framed quote that simply read, "You don't lose power by being quiet. You lose it by not knowing when to speak." She stepped into the living room. I could smell the panic on her. Her mascara was smudged, her blazer wrinkled, and her mouth moved like she had 50 things to say, but not one thing to make sense of it all. She began, then stopped. You went to my office. I flipped the page of my book. I did. They suspended me. I finally looked at her. They'll fire you by morning. You're ruining my life, she whispered, almost like she still believed she was the victim. No, I said, standing slowly. I'm just taking mine back. She walked forward, desperate now. We can fix this, you don't have to do this. You loved me, you. I did, I nodded. But I stopped loving the version of you that thought I was furniture in your life. Something you leaned on but never looked at. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't move. She looked around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. The absence of her mother's vase, the missing his and hers frame, even the couch cushions, flipped over to the side that didn't smell like her perfume. What happens now? She asked. You leave, I said gently. The moving truck comes tomorrow. Your boxes are already in the garage. I gave you 72 hours, now it's 24. But where will I go? Back to Lee's or your investor friend? Or maybe, just maybe, you'll go find yourself again. She opened her mouth to argue, but then she didn't. Because somewhere in her soul, even she knew, this was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming the man she thought would never stand up and walk away. She turned, walked to the door, paused, looked back at me one last time. Were you always this strong? She asked quietly. I smiled for the first time in days. No, I just stopped pretending I wasn't. She closed the door behind her. And this time it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a beginning. 3 weeks later, the house no longer smelled like regret. The kitchen had been painted. The master bedroom, finally mine, had fresh linen and sunlight pouring in through new curtains. I'd gotten rid of the cold grey tones she insisted on, and filled the space with warm woods, earthy greens, and one thing she never let me have, bookshelves in the living room. I was supposed to feel alone, but I didn't. In fact, for the first time in years I felt alive. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, while replacing light bulbs in the porch lanterns, a silver car pulled into the driveway. I didn't recognize it. A woman stepped out, tall, poised, mid-30s maybe, dark curls tied back, smart glasses, a calm confidence in the way she walked. "James Mercer?" she asked. I nodded slowly, wiping my hands on a towel. "That's me." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a crisp envelope. "I'm Anna Blake, I work with Harper and Gray Law. Your name came up in a case we're following closely. A housing fraud case involving private equity laundering and falsified co-signer information." I narrowed my eyes. "That sounds oddly familiar." She smiled knowingly. "It should. Your ex-wife's name is in the file. So is the developer she was funneling money to." My chest tightened, but not in fear, in clarity. Anna continued, "The thing is, your documentation, the one you filed with Mr. Sutton, it helped us connect 3 separate fraud cases. And because of that, the DA is considering dropping you into witness protection for the hearing. But only if you want to testify." I took the envelope. Inside, subpoenas, wire transfers, surveillance transcripts. Her signature in places I never signed. "You're saying she's part of a criminal ring?" Anna tilted her head. "I'm saying you were married to someone who thought she was untouchable, and she wasn't working alone." I stared at the house behind me, my house, and for the first time, I realized the story wasn't about a broken marriage. It was about how close I came to being collateral damage in something much bigger. Anna took a step closer. "You were smart. You kept receipts, now we want you on our side." I nodded slowly. "All right, let's talk." But as we walked toward the front door, I glanced at the security camera feed on my phone, and there she was, sitting in a parked car across the street, watching us. The storm wasn't over. It was just round 2. I didn't let Anna see the screen right away. I needed a moment to think. My ex-wife sitting across the street in a blacked-out car, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky, pretending to be invisible, was anything but. She was watching, waiting, measuring her next move. "She's here," I finally said as I opened the door and motioned Anna inside. Anna didn't even flinch. She simply walked past me, calm and alert. I figured she might be. People like her don't just disappear after losing control. They hover, desperate to find cracks they can crawl back through. I locked the door behind us, then pulled the curtain just enough to watch the car. "She hasn't tried to contact me since she left." I said I thought she was finally gone. "No," Anna replied. "She's quiet because she's cornered. We're getting close to filing charges. Her name is linked to 2 Shell properties already seized. And with your testimony, we can tie her directly to the laundering operation." I turned toward Anna, who now stood by the bookshelf, scanning the framed photos I had taken down from storage. Photos of me hiking, surfing, smiling before her. "Do you think she'll do something reckless?" I asked. Anna looked at me over her glasses. "She already did. She married a good man and treated him like an obstacle. People like her only value you when they lose access to you." Her words hung heavy, but I wasn't the same man anymore. I walked to the garage, pulled out the case I hadn't opened in years. Inside were all the digital backups I made, USBs, voice memos, receipts I'd collected quietly while she thought I was numb. Anna watched me lay them out on the table like chess pieces. "She doesn't know what you've got, does she?" she asked. I shook my head. She only knew what I let her see. Just then my phone lit up. Unknown number. But the message. I knew that handwriting anywhere. "You've made your point, now stop, or I will." Anna leaned over to read it, her lips pressed into a tight line. "Congratulations," she said softly. "She's officially threatened you. That just bought us more leverage." I looked at the window again. The car was gone. But the game had changed. She was no longer just an ex-wife. She was a cornered criminal. And I wasn't her victim anymore. I was the man who knew too much. The following weeks moved like a slow-burning fuse. My ex-wife didn't show up again in person, but she left traces. A burner email here, a mysterious client calling my new business line, a car idling down the street for too long at night. But the more desperate she became, the more evidence she left behind. Anna and I worked closely, too closely. Maybe we spent long hours reviewing case files, connecting dots, laughing more than we expected. There was a quiet rhythm between us, one built not just on justice, but mutual respect. She never pitied me. She saw me, that alone was something I hadn't felt in years. Then the day came. Courtroom cold, controlled. She walked in wearing white, like innocence could be stitched into a blouse. She didn't look at me, not directly, but her eyes searched for something. Fear, regret, I didn't care anymore. I sat in the witness chair, spoke clearly, calmly. I told the truth. When the verdict was read, she barely blinked. Guilty. Wire fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit financial theft. 18 months. Not forever, but enough. She was escorted out in silence. No final words, no final look. And just like that, the woman who once controlled my house, my peace and my identity, was gone. Anna walked with me to the courthouse steps. The breeze was soft, light danced in her hair. You're free now, she said. I smiled. Feels strange. It'll feel like life again soon. We stood in silence, not rushed, not broken, just present. I looked at her. Can I take you to dinner sometime? Somewhere without folders and subpoenas. She laughed. You'd better. I want to see the man behind the strategy. I think I'm still figuring him out, I admitted. She smiled. Good, just promise me. Whoever you become next, don't play small again. I nodded. Never again. And as we walked into the sunlight, one step at a time, I knew. I hadn't just escaped a marriage. I'd survived a quiet war. And finally, I'd won.